Video because your team just came back and dummied the Stars, and we've now got a 2-2 series headed back to Dallas. And I think we were all a little bit worried Game 3 is going to bleed into Game 4, as after the first 5 minutes, old Skin Dog let in 2 on his first 4 shots. The first one just barely a minute into the game, where Wyatt Johnston rips a laser beam chop cheddar off a nice little pass by Jamie Benn. You can blame Skinner or not for this one, but that's also a great shot by Johnston. Then a couple minutes later, Lindell flings one on net and it goes off of Darnell Nurse's booty cheeks and in. That's right, off the same Wonder Buns that were the talk of the internet all week, and Dallas jumps to an early 2-0 lead. And this is the one that made me stop and go, oh no, it's going to be another one of those nights for the Oilers, especially when the team they're playing against is shooting 50% 5 minutes into a game. And the Oilers weren't generating much either, but credit where credit is due. Instead of letting the team get away, Knoblauch settled the boys down, he got them refocused, and Skin Dog didn't let in another the rest of the way. The Oilers had that 2-goal lead erased by the end of the first period, and late in the second, the Oilers finally grabbed the lead, and it's a shorty off a tasty little feed from Connor Brown as Janmark bangs it home. Brown, of all people who's gotten so much shit this year, is now on a nice little 3-game point streak and is definitely making the most out of his 10 minutes of ice time a night. And then just 50 seconds later, Draisaitl does a quick give and go, and the puck goes into the net for his 10th as the crowd just erupts at the sight of an insurance marker. Oilers up 4-2. They'd add an empty netter for a final score of 5-2. And I guess the moral of this one is that if you're going to go down to
The Oilers won 3-1 yesterday against the Stars.
2-0, better to do so in the first few minutes. But a great game by the Oilers overall, and this looked like a team that could win the cup, who also would have scored more if not for a stray stick hanging out in the crease. That was so funny. I don't think I've ever seen a dead stick stop a goal quite like this, but it was hilarious, and McDavid's face after being denied a sure goal for not the first time in this series was priceless. As for the Stars, big concerns losing Tanev. He's been driving that defense and blocking shots, and without him, they looked a little bit lost. Hopefully they can recalibrate and DeBoer figures it out, because after out-coaching the Oilers in Game 3, the Knoblauch Ness monster came out to feast in Game 4. But now we're headed back to Big D for Game 5 with the Oilers thankful they're not in a 3-1 hole. But what do you think of the Oilers rallying in this one, and how about the 6, Dave, by the, stick? Let us know down below.
This series definitely isn't over, and with the magic this Rangers team has had these playoffs, the last thing I'm going to do is fully count them out. But to win that Game 6 in a raucous, lively MSG, especially right after winning Game 4 in overtime off the stick of your highest goal scorer in the regular season, giving him even more confidence in what's been a ridiculous year for Sam Reinhart. Plus, Bobrovsky played really well. Like, things are coming up pretty aces for the Florida Panthers right now. And again, by no means are the Rangers dead. Like, they win one game, they're going back to Madison Square Garden Game 7 at home. That changes everything, and it could easily be them going to the Stanley Cup final, but man, do the Panthers look terrifying right now. Tkachuk may not be scoring overtime goals in bulk like he did last year, but he's still been a great performer these playoffs. He's their leading scorer, and the other side of that two-headed monster from last year's playoff run, Sergei Bobrovsky, isn't playing out of his mind like he was last year, but he's playing well enough to give this team a chance to win. And with how good they are, that's pretty much all they need. We mentioned Reinhart, he's carrying his 57-goal form from the regular season into the playoffs. That obviously helps in winning playoff games. And this one is big to me. Barkov was good last year. He's been even better for this team in this year's playoffs. And look, it's not just the points. Like, this guy does so much more than that for this team. But the points definitely do help quantify this. Last year in 21 playoff games, he had 16 points. This year in just 16 games, he's got 17 points. That alone to me makes this team scarier just because of how good and how important Barkov is. And it's wild because last year they got through Toronto in 5 games and they swept Carolina. This year it took them 6 to beat Boston, and they're going to at least 6 with the Rangers. But even with that comparable from this year to last year, I still think this year's team is more complete and better suited to win a cup than the one last year that went to the cup final. And in my opinion, two of the biggest reasons why we're both on the team last year and connected on the first goal for Florida last night. Sam Bennett has the puck before the blue line here, and before he even enters the zone, Gustav Forsling here knows that he's jumping up, he's activating. When Bennett pulls the puck back here, Lafreniere's expecting this puck to go to Tkachuk on the wing, so he puts his stick out to cover that lane. But because this was such a smart activation by Forsling, he made himself an option at center ice, so Bennett knows he's jumping up. He's able to sneak behind Lafreniere, and Bennett makes a good play to get it to him. All of a sudden, we've got a playoff breakaway for the defenseman with 39 points this season. Now from here, what do you think he's going to do? A, miss the net on a backhand. B, backhand it in Shesterkin's breadbasket. Or C, pull off the Merrick Malik, complete with the Statue of Liberty celebration, of course, because wouldn't that have been something in New York at MSG? Well, the answer was D, backhand roof job like he's Sidney Crosby. Is this guy crazy underrated, or is it just me? Like, I knew he was good. I mean, Florida just signed him to an 8-year contract extension worth almost $6 million per year, but especially in these playoffs, he's blown me away with how good he's been. He's definitely been one of their most important players on this run, and I think probably their best defenseman, or at the very least neck and neck with Brandon Montour. Oh, I'm rewatching it now. It actually goes low glove on Shesterkin and gets propelled up into the top corner. So not as impressive as I initially thought, but still, what a player. And now for the elephant in the room, a guy that I've seen hated by Bruins fans, Leaf fans, Oiler fans. Am I forgetting anyone? Sam Bennett has been such a force in these playoffs, man, and even just saying that is apparently controversial. And look, especially with the new angle that came out like a day later of the Marchand sucker, I don't like it. I thought it was a dirty play. And I wasn't a fan of the play on Nyes last year either. But the fact is, he's been such a difference maker in these playoffs for the Panthers, whether you like how he plays the game or not. Even going back to his time with the Flames, like, he was always a playoff performer. He's built for playoff hockey. And the Panthers are reaping the rewards of that. Plus, I know Paul Maurice has never won a cup, but I think he's a really good coach, and that's factoring in here too. A lot can happen in that Game 6, but this is a scary team right now. Give me your thoughts on the Panthers, especially going into this next game. It's been really Oilers heavy the past few videos, and I'll try to balance it out a bit more. I will keep talking about the Oilers, but I also want to mix in some more Florida, Rangers, even Dallas focused videos as well. Let me know. I'll see you in the next one. You're awesome. Now, when I say Oilers fans have waited a long time for this, some people might be thinking that I'm referring to them being one game away from going back to the Cup final for the first time since 2006. And yeah, 18 years by normal standards is a pretty long time. But in the NHL, when you've got lots of teams who've waited decades or have never even been to the Cup final, that's not what I'm referring to here. In a 2-2 series on the road, taking that 3-2 series lead is pivotal, so you need somebody to step up. You're thinking it's probably going to be McDavid or Draisaitl, Bouchard, Hyman, one of those guys, right? But to have the longest tenured Oiler in games played in the uniform, at least, because Sam Gagner is still on this team. And honestly, one of the biggest Oiler fan favorites I've seen. I mean, he's up there with guys like Ryan Smith. Speaking of which, his second goal was super Ryan Smith-esque. For him to go and score those 2 massive goals, including the game winner, it honestly feels pretty full circle. Like, when this guy was drafted first overall in 2011 out of Red Deer. Shout out to the Rebels, by the way. I loved watching games in the old NMAX Centurium growing up. I remember feeling like the reception he got from Oilers fans was pretty special. It felt different than what Taylor Hall got the year before and what Nail Yakupov got the year after. The fan base seemed seemed to gravitate towards him in a way that I hadn't seen since '06, and it ended up playing out that way too. I mean, he's the only Oiler left from the pre-McDavid-Draisaitl era. But man, when he was picked in 2011 and the Oilers were stockpiling young talent, I'm sure Oilers fans were thinking he was going to be scoring big playoff goals for them sooner rather than later. Instead, there were a lot of lean years for him in Edmonton early on. I mean, he didn't play his first playoff game until his 6th season. And even coming out of that, I mean, the 17-18, 18-19 seasons did not go well for the Oilers. This fan base has waited a long time to celebrate this with him and to see him play the hero with big goals deep in the playoffs. Like, for a lot of people in this generation of Oilers fans, this is their guy. Like, for a team
The Golden Knights won 4-3 on April 22.
team that has two of the most electrifying players the game has ever seen, man, do I see a lot of Nugent Hopkins jerseys when I'm in Oilers circles. And it's not just the fans. I mean, Draisaitl was raving about him in the media this morning, mentioned that he's probably a coach's favorite player in the world. Oh, and I wanted to throw this stat at you. So I mentioned that he's the longest tenured Oiler in terms of games played. The guy has more regular season games played in an Oilers uniform than Mark Messier. Isn't that wild? I know Messier is also fondly remembered for his time with the Rangers, and he played with the Canucks as well. But still, when I heard that, I was like, wow, really? And it made me think, maybe it makes you guys think this too, where's this guy going to end up in Oilers history? Which, even just thinking that is wild to me, because I remember seeing the scrawny kid who played for the Red Deer Rebels, and then his first couple of years with the Hull, Eberle, Nugent Hopkins Oilers, and then kind of shifting to the background when 97 and 29 really burst onto the scene. Now look where we are. I don't know, this stuff really fascinates me, the whole progression and trajectory of this player. It was cool to see him do what he did tonight, especially the first goal. That was a nice snipe. I love seeing guys snipe the puck hard and low, and that's exactly what Nugent Hopkins does a lot. Oiler fans, talk to me about number 93. And also, who's your guy growing up? Like, it doesn't have to be an Oiler, just let me know in general. Who is your NHL player that you really resonated with? For more Oilers content, please like the video and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. You're awesome.